kind of growth that we're looking for? Is it growth in and of itself? Is it growth that is creating jobs? Is it growth that is creating jobs for those that have been excluded from the job market, such as the young generation, such as women? And is it growth that creates job and that is also inclusive because it has a social dimension and should consist of aggregating rather than dividing, as we have observed lately? So I'm not sure that I have a ready-made answer for you, but it is clearly part of the agenda that we have and that we pursue, that to have that quality growth that help guaranteeing the social chemistry of our societies.
Let me just add to this. Within the Millennium Development Goals, there will be some that are met globally. So, for example, cutting poverty in half will happen. And that is a very significant achievement during that period. Now, one reason it's going to happen is because China has reduced poverty by about 300 million or 400 million people. So if you look through all the goals, there's some good progress in education and some of the other ones. Now, as you go country by country, in sub-Saharan Africa as well, there's been some significant progress. So talk about girls in school, one of the issues in the genders. We now have in many countries, maybe most countries, about half the girls in primary education. We now have to work on the quality of the education, the secondary education. In some of the health and water and sanitation, we're not as far as we need to be. I remember, because I visited Mali in December, there were a couple, we track these individually, obviously, but we can get back to. In Mali, my recollection was there were a couple that Mali had a good chance to be able to make. Now, the purpose of goals, however, is not just to clear easy hurdles. The purpose is also to understand kind of what else we have to do to keep working for them. Now, here's the group that's most vulnerable. In post-conflict countries, not one of them has been able to reach one Millennium Development Goal. So that's the focus we have, particularly on the Liberias, the Haitis, the Cote d'Ivoires, and others. But let me give you an example of what comes out of some of these, the detail of this. Take some of the health and education and nutrition ones. Is that people have tended to look at these as separate goals. True enough, they're on the chart separately, but the intervention is probably much better if you can get them in an interconnected fashion. So I talked about the safety net, and I mentioned this conditional cash transfer program started in Mexico and in Brazil, now in 50 countries. That model was you get money to the poorest, you deal with the poverty goal, if people send their children to school and they get basic health checkups. So one platform, 3 goals. And you can do the same thing in school feeding and connect it with basic vaccinations and nutrition. So please don't give up hope, because there have been countries that are making it. There's on some of the goals you're going to make it in a macro fashion, and even within sub-Saharan African countries, there's a lot of variation, and that means with some we've made progress, and others we're going to learn how to try to achieve those goals. So the other point I think that also Christine referenced is this occurs a lot more easily if it's an environment in which you've got growth. So what really drove a lot of the anti-poverty changes in China was an overall growth agenda. Now, you talked about aid numbers. We're going to try to do what we can. We had a report at the Development Committee, I think about $130 billion of aid this year. And here's where we ought to draw attention where countries are doing the right thing. Britain is taking a very tough fiscal program. It is still increasing its development aid. It's still going towards the 0.7 goal. Australia is trying to do the same thing. So there's countries out there that are trying to be supportive. And then if we help countries mobilize their own domestic resources, go back to this corruption question, the more we can try to do where local revenues are not misspent or given to some rich minister or something like that, then you drive that home, and it comes back right to his question on transparency. I answered it narrowly with the Stolen Asset Recovery Initiative. Best thing we can do is help the transparency to fight the corruption in countries. So don't give up hope, and particularly in Mali. Mali, as you know, as a democracy, has made, for a poor country, has made some notable progress. It can make it.
Thank you very much.